To call this. Do you want me to start over?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to call this meeting to order. Introductions of a new commissioner. Would you like to introduce yourself to us? Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Latonia, but I prefer LT. I work as a charger at CCI and I've been there for a couple of years now. Idaho resident for 8 years, almost 9, and 2 kids who are in the school district and in college this past May.
Congratulations.
Congratulations on all of that.
And I was really encouraged to join in the community more, and here I am.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And do we want to go around and introduce ourselves?
Sure.
Okay, you want to start off?
Okay,
So this is a mix of board members and staff. So I will say I'm a staff member, so I'm Public Works Director for the city of Lewiston. So, and Haley's the other staff person from the Public Works Department. So all of the information in the packets, everything funneled through me and her. You guys are the decision makers. So
Perfect. Thank you very much for doing all of that. Now,
but Haley does all the work. I'm the one who muddles it up.
and Kaylee, your position is a little different.
the student member. Yeah, so I'm a student at LC.
Brent Borsa. Ryan Rader.
Kathy Schroeder.
Laura Wright, hi, welcome.
Kevin Kelly. And just to clarify, so Kathy is a city council member and Cassie, who is
here?
not here, but she's usually a couple minutes late. She has to come from work, so she's either not gonna be here today or be here in a couple minutes.
So, yes.
So those are the 2 council members that serve on this board.
All right, well, we're gonna move on to citizen comments. I see none. So we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the commission and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these issues unless commissioner so requests. In which case, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered under items moved from the consent agenda. Do we have any items that you would like to remove, or shall we have an approval? None, so shall we have an approval?
I move that we approve the May 8th special meeting minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Passes. Going on to the director's report.
Director's report, I am going to go through a bunch of the, not a bunch, a couple of the items that we've had discussions before. Outline, some of them are closing out, but I'm gonna reserve the bulk of my time for the agenda item 6B, financial fiscal year budget update. So I will not be touching budget or anything until we get to that appropriate budget or the agenda item. The 2 things that are closing out, just give you an update. 21st Street, so we did that fiber slurry. Those who were aware, paid close attention that there was no base on that road. So we milled out the top layer and did some fills to kind of even it out. We did some quality patching where you dig out the base, bring it back up to, because we had potholes and some sinks in there. And then what was unique about this pavement, it's the first time it's been used in, at least in the valley here, I think maybe the first application in Idaho, where they put mesh fiber in the actual asphalt. And so instead of we have no sub base, but the actual pavement serves as a base itself. So it's structural. And so there was a couple layers of that. It looks great. It looks black. It looks smooth. I know I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. The true test will be what's it look like in 5 years and 10 years. I've been as upfront as I can is that's a Band-Aid. It's a more permanent Band-Aid than just doing what we've been doing, but it's until we get subbase on that road and do a full reconstruct, it will never survive the full expectation of a road, 50 to 100 years. It will last 10 to 20 years. So we are, moving, I'll get more into the budget of what we're trying to do to address that in the long term, but 21st Street is closing out. The only thing that's remaining, if you go by Sharps Burger Ranch, we had to put in all the ADA ped ramps. So when you do a project of that size, you have to bring up all the sidewalks and the ramps up to current standards. So we did that as a separate, before we did all that asphalt work. And you do your best to make sure that the pavements and everything line up. That one ramp was the most challenging. And so as you get the drainage pad, you've got the drainage coming down 21st Street, you've got the crown on the street, and then you've got the ped ramp. And so if you drive by Sharps, there's probably about a 4-inch gap between the asphalt and the ped ramp. So we have to rip that ped ramp out and redo it. And so that's warranty work. That's the only thing that's outstanding on that one. Annual street preservation is closed out. There may be some punch list items, minor punch list items out there. You were inconvenienced at all, probably 2-3 weeks ago, where we just randomly shut down a street and put chip seal,
you about that.
bond code, whatever it was. So we go through our indexing and find the streets that are in most need of not repair, but just maintenance. And so that is the cheapest way of maintaining our streets, is just making sure that once cracks build into the asphalt, that's when water gets in there. Once water gets in there, that's when you start seeing potholes and heaving of asphalt. So we try and keep them watertight and put them shiny and black. So that was the 2024 pavement preservation project that's closed out. Everybody loves us so much because you get detoured and then you get detoured into a detour. Then you come to ITD and there's some bridge work and you get detoured around that. And then they're working at the courthouse, you get detoured around that. So I think generally, I don't know that we have any outstanding road construction right now. So you can complain to ITD or the county or somebody else now. So the only other project I was gonna bring, we have a lot of bigger, due to scheduling conflicts and me being out, we haven't really budget, me being out and scheduling problems, getting these meetings scheduled. I don't think we've really covered much this summer. I mean, we haven't done as much. We were ramped up pretty good in the spring, and then the summer we all got busy. I have 3 significant projects on our plate for the fall: Main Street, lead and copper, and then the arterial lane closure policy that I'm going to be bringing to you guys in different. Some of these I just want your feedback as to the messaging. Some of them I want you guys to do like we did with the what was the one that we just wrapped up? It was the traffic calming measure, yeah. So like that will be the arterial lane closure. I'm gonna want you guys to review that, give me your feedback as how good that is. The one that's looming the soonest is Main Street. So just to bring you guys in the loop, I will say I petitioned to have somebody from this board on that steering committee, but they didn't want you because they wanted somebody. The steering committee is made up of business owners, property owners, people who are impacted most directly by the potential construction. So at this point, I'm gonna bring you guys back, bring you guys into it. We will be rolling out September 10th as the first public meeting for the introduction to the public of what the Main Street project's looking like. We've been working, as I said, we have a steering committee and then we have the business property owners. It's similar people. Yeah.
So why did they not want us there at the
At
beginning?
this
I mean,
point-
I understand that there's, property owners and business owners, and I understand that they're the most impacted and whatnot. But you would think still having a commissioner there just to somewhat also hear, understand some of their concerns,
Yeah.
et cetera, just to be part of the dialogue, part of what is going on, since it is such a massive project.
Yeah, I think part of it was there's so many people involved, so they had to put the line somewhere. The key component is we've even uninvited our own engineers because, it's just not a constructive use of their time from the technical standpoint. we're talking about tree species, park benches, what the facade should look like, what they want the character of downtown to look like. So it's more architectural at this point and talking about deliveries and operation hours and all those types of things that the business owners, we're approaching this project a lot different than we've approached a lot of our other large infrastructure projects, because I think what we've gotten in the past was we were not sensitive enough of the impact of the project. So the example I use is the water main replacement we did on the other side of 9th Street. The contract was drafted as it was a regular public works project. There weren't enough penalties in there to force the contractor to do anything beyond what they did. And so we're now crafting this one knowing that it's gonna be right into the urban core of downtown. And so we're putting a lot more effort in public outreach, public education, taking as much feedback as we can and taking a much softer approach. We'll get into the parts where we need some technical feedback and review. And so I think maybe that was a little rough where I said you were not invited, more of we're queuing all the different boards and entities to come on as we have availability and it's more appropriate for feedback. So next month, next September, either I will present it or we'll have the consultant present it to this board and introduce it. Because it'll be good, because it'll be the 18th, so it'll be a week after the public engagement. And so you guys will get a flavor and probably a more in-depth flavor than what we did the week before, because you guys are more in tune with what Public Works does. So that's what's on queue. And beyond that, when we get into the winter, we're gonna be talking a lot about stormwater. And we have a lot of backlog of policies that need to be submitted for our permit. So I apologize again that we hit the summer, we hit the budget season, and it's been a little bit light, but it's not due to lack of progress and stuff. It's just trying to get these meetings scheduled and getting packets out to everybody for them to review in a timely manner. So that's what I've got for now.
September 10th, that was a meeting. What is that meeting?
That is the public town hall open house for the first open to the public introduction to the Main Street project.
Okay, didn't we have one of those?
Those were the steering committee meetings, and then that one at the library was for the property owners and business owners. That was by invitation.
Okay, so this is for the general.
General
public.
public for anybody who's interested in the project. So
Okay. So we were free to go to that.
yeah, you're definitely free to go to that.
And then you mentioned the 18th?
18th our next
Our next
meeting.
Okay, all right. So that's when they may give us a presentation. Okay, thank you.
Either be stuck with me or I'll bring the consultant.
We're glad to have you. Okay, so that's all for your report, correct?
Yes.
So we go on to 6, active agenda. And A is US 12 Blue Bridge Stormwater Drainage by WisDOT response letter. Did everyone get a chance to read that? Yep. Good. It was quite interesting. Here it is. Questions? You wanna, is there things that jumped out at you that we'd like to talk about, or? No,
I'd say, really just saying, yeah, we know that it's not draining well. Nothing, we hope to replace it sometime in the future. But I may have asked about this, I don't remember. Have we thought about
Thank you.
that's it.
That's what I've got on my notes to talk through, to find out if that is a source for us to work on.
Yeah, have like work in conjunction with not necessarily a replacement, but improving drainage
Yeah, I
to get us past the.
one aspect, and yeah, so you have the MPO policy board and then you have the MPO technical advisory committee. And Paul, who wrote this letter, has always, I think he's still on, has always been on the TAC And so I think we could probably float this through the TAC, NPO TAC, if you wanted to have a deeper conversation, because TAC is made up of all the local agencies, you know, the engineers and public works directors from, you know, Clarkston, Lewiston, Soden County, Nez Perce County, ITD, WashDOT. Tribe participates in it. You know, it's a big group of agencies, and so a lot of that kick ideas around. The one thing I think, you know, Washington, I mean, the letter is basically as it described it. They have flirted with painting that bridge multiple times, and I think it's on now, but I'm sure it'll come off again and then back on and back off. When we did the Southway Bridge, there was conversation about addressing because the scuppers, the drains go right into the river, and it's the same setup on this bridge. So would there be any consideration as part of that painting project to address some of the drainage issues? And so that would be a good time to, as we start talking about the budget, it's WashDOT and ITD state budgets for the painting of the bridge, but say, hey, you know, that would seem like a capital project that we could insert some of that if there was any will to do that.
And it's not that I'm trying to throw any mud on Clarkston, but why are they not doing more with stormwater?
Well, that's, yeah. So that roundabout they're doing, that's all WashDOT route, you know, Bridge Street is all State Highway 129. And so this is all the jurisdiction of WashDOT. I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's some side streets, Diagonal and Riverview that come into that, but the bulk of that is the jurisdiction of WashDOT, yeah.
Okay.
And there's a certain level of irony that roundabout is being paid for by federal funds that are funneled to Clarkston for a state route. Similar to the Fleshman Way roundabout, that's a state route paid for by federal dollars that were funneled through Soden County. So that's just that's the nature of how it works.
You mentioned several times that they were not doing, wouldn't we be fined if we weren't doing stormwater?
Yeah, I mean, yes, WashDOT does things a little bit different, as does ITD.
Oh, that's Idaho versus. Yes.
So I was curious because having researched this extensively before the letter went out, this bridge is historically listed. You have a historically listed item, you can't just destroy it. You know, you can't just all of a sudden we're gonna get rid of it and replace it. And with a new one, that's not gonna happen. I mean, I'm not that naive. I mean, you can't do it once you've had it listed. So I'm really hoping, NPO might, I think for everybody's sake, I think what they could do is kind of like the painting of the bridge, like you said. I think they need to work on the drainage because there's no way. If you're gonna go ahead and paint this bridge, that means there's no way you're gonna be replacing this bridge anytime soon.
Yeah.
So the drainage and everything, there are other ways to do that. And so I really hope people will put the heat and the pressure on them continually as to bring it up like all the time. So that, and the reason I say that is because as we know, there's a lot of stormwater dollars out there and there are grants and other items out there on a federal basis to get that money. Like if that's what kind of triggered my whole thing was you were saying how they got these federal monies and all that bid brought back to do that. There are these federal monies on the stormwater side that they can get, loop that back and put into that bridge. So I'm hoping you can
Yeah.
continue to please push NPO and
Yeah,
everybody for those dollars.
The crazy part is, so they just program these, so we have basically all the entities within the MPO program their money, and so we just track them. So if it's coming from state, we just put it in our budget, even though we don't have we don't control the dollars, but we have to go through the MPO and we accept it, and so there's a revenue and expense. So they've, like I said, they've brought it in, they've taken it out, brought it in, taken it out. The current expense for painting this bridge is $16 million. 16. We built the Fleshman Way roundabout for 4. That's
Yeah, but
4
it's-
roundabouts.
The only reason I can think it's that much, it has lead.
I'm assuming, and if
That's
you've ever
probably
driven through
what it is.
Washington, when they do, even Idaho, if you ever see them painting bridges, they basically put them in a giant diaper.
Yeah.
And so no chipped paint
Correct.
or anything goes into the river. And so I'm assuming it's gonna be a, great big circus tent.
So it's really basically because the sorry, Chair. Basically because of the delicacy of the job, like, or what,
Yeah.
how many risks there
Yeah,
is.
yeah, Yeah, and it's, I mean, you've seen them paint, the Vantage Bridge on I-90 and it's massive. This is a tiny little bridge for $16 million, but still for $16 million, how about we put some
Exactly.
some drainage on there, so
What year was,
Squeeze it in there.
what year was that bridge built?
39.
Oh, so it was definitely.
Oh, yeah. They've painted it multiple times since then, so I don't know what the status is of the blue paint. It wasn't originally blue.
Yeah.
It's the old olive green.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments on that?
I just have one.
Okay.
What was the purpose of it going up? What kind, I was talking about this with someone in the public and we were trying to think of what boats would be necessary to.
Oh. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the original bridge was built in 1890 something, so it was really, really narrow. If you look pictured, it feels narrow now, but if you look at the original bridge, it was even a lot more narrow. And it was up and over. So the old steamships would go to grain growers on Snake River.
Oh, okay.
But by the time this bridge was built in 39, they were almost done. There was a railroad spur down, well, you remember the railroad spur, we just took it out. So yeah, it was, the steamships would go up and down, but even by 39, I think barge traffic maybe went up there.
Yeah, but now it goes.
It has,
the other way.
there's not much that goes under that bridge.
Interesting. I didn't know about the historical thing though, so that.
You're hitting all my favorite things of history and bridges.
Well, someone was asking about it, so I was like, oh, I better bring it up,
Yeah.
but anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anything else? All right, gonna move on to B. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, Hogan said, asked if we wanted to have someone from WashDOT come and do a presentation.
Oh, that's right.
You guys want that, or? Yes. Oh, sorry.
I think we have one vote anymore. Okay. Oops, sorry.
So do we wanna do an official vote on that one, or? just-
No, I think that we've got enough nods of heads.
Sure.
Sorry.
It'll probably be the day that I'm not here.
It was
Secret's
good you
report.
spoke up.
Enthusiasm is good.
It is great. Okay, so, Director?
Okay, now on to this special time of year when I end up diving into Idaho property tax details that I never thought I would ever do.
Lovely.
So I'm gonna take a roundabout way to give this board an update of where we're at. So we're into the second of 3 readings for the city budget. So next Monday, they'll officially adopt the budget. So I'm gonna walk through kind of the background of how we've got here. And what they made, where they were at Monday and kind of where I think they might go on the 3rd week, next week. The first thing I wanted to bring up for this board's consideration, which I'm getting way out beyond my area of expertise, but I made sure everybody's got a copy of this. This is on the Nez Perce County website. And this is the consolidated tax levies for the year of 2023. So the public comment from this Monday was, City of Lewiston is the highest taxed city in the state of Idaho. That statement is false. The other statement I would say, the city of Lewiston is not even the highest taxed city in Nez Perce County. So,
Oh. The county is the second highest, but the
well,
city itself.
so there's 4, well, I'll get into, so the front page is, so the way property taxes are done, and I'll give you a real high level, this is not an expert opinion, but Idaho and most other states, you were taxed on the value of your property. And so what has happened over the last couple of years, one is there's the the homeowner's exemption, which is locked in at a dollar amount and does not have a fluctuation for CPI or any other index. So yeah, like it used to. So it's locked in at a certain dollar amount. At the same time, the property values, residential property values, as people during COVID or whatever have moved to Idaho. So supply and demand, more people want to move here. And so the supply and demand, residential property values have gone up significantly in the last 5, 7 years. And I think everybody at this table has experienced that to see what the housing market has done. At the same time, nationally and locally, you've seen however many Kmart's buying or
Red Lobster,
all the different commercial properties, restaurants, commercial retail have closed. So the demand for retail have gone down. So demand for residential gone up, retail gone down, so your prices, so currently now. The city's budget has not gone up for 2 years. This is the 3rd year in a row, the budget has not gone up. But you get your property tax bill and you say, why are my taxes going up? It's because your value of your residence has gone up while the value of Red Lobster has gone down because the demand for that has gone down. So that's where all that, no, I shouldn't say all, but it's the homeowner's exemption, the demand for residential versus commercial. That's all cooked into this. And so all your taxes are based off of what the value is of your property, residential, commercial, industrial, whatever. And so this front sheet shows you, no matter where you live, somewhere in Nez Perce County, you fall on one of these lines. You might be in a city, you might be outside of a city. You might be in a school district, you might be in a highway district, you might be in a fire district, you might be in a cemetery district, you might be in a library district. So when we talk about highest taxes in the state, well, it depends what block of Idaho you live on, because you might be in a school district that just passed a levy, a bond, and so you're paying for a new school, or you might be living in or might not be in a fire district, so you're not paying for any fire protection, but your taxes are lower. And so that's the front side of every district that's within Nez Perce County. The back side is, so it's just broken down to what those districts price you at. So the top is a county. The city of Lewiston does not control anything within the county. Same thing with cities, schools, highway, fire, all the special districts. The first line on the city's line that says Lewiston, that is the only line the city of Lewiston controls. That's what we're talking about on the budget. So if you go top line Lewiston, you've got the capital fund, you've got the general fund, you've got city and oiling, kind of an antiquated name, but city and oiling, library, we don't have a parks and recreation district. We have a cemetery district. We had a police retirement that's no longer active, but it's still got a line item. Important judgment. So if any of the cities lost a lawsuit or owe any judgment, that's where that would come. You look to the right, there's 4 incorporated cities in Nez Perce County: Lewiston, Cul-de-sac, Lapwai, Peck. The only city, incorporated city, that has lower taxes than Lewiston is Peck. Cul-de-sac and Lapwai all charge a higher rate of taxes than Lewiston. And I guess it goes, it's a challenge for me, and I actually pulled up the entire state of Idaho. I have 125 pages of these sheets and just trying to compare city by city, and it's very hard because, like I said, Boise is really comparable. If you just look at the general obligation, general fund, we're right even with Boise at 0.004. But Boise doesn't have a street department. Boise has the Ada County Highway District, so they pay for that. Boise has multiple school districts, so it depends on which school district you're in. They have sewer districts, they have irrigation districts, they have fire districts, so it depends where you live. So when people say Lewiston is the highest taxed city in Idaho, it's not comparing apples to oranges, and it's actually false. So I wanted to start that out, just kind of the opening dialogue of I get frustrated because people read it online or on Facebook, and this thing has perpetuated. Every meeting that we talk about property taxes, it gets repeated and repeated over and over and over again. And I don't know if anybody's actually ever looked at the data to say it's not true.
It's a clear, I could see I'm sorry, Chair. I could see how people look it up, and the first thing it does say that, but then you have to look into the
Yeah.
nuts and bolts to
Yeah.
get the actual answer. But if you just look up a quick Google search, it'll be like, we're the highest. And so I think that's what people are doing, and then they get that false information.
Yeah. So
Is the county taxed at a pretty high rate relative to other counties?
yeah, and that's, I haven't had enough time to dig into it, but like Lewiston is real comparable to Pocatello. As far as the services we provide, we're almost exactly 0.006 and change of what we assess. But yeah, our counties are high, but I mean, we've got the only port district. we're school district number 1 in Idaho, so we were grandfathered into some of these special rates. The school district gets to, the way they assess, but that, none of those things really push you in one direction dramatically. It's just, I think it's an accumulative thing of all the services you get. And so I haven't found exactly the details because I looked at like Eagle. Eagle has 0 property tax and I can't figure out why. I mean, you're getting the same services as you are in they're Ada County, so there's some really weird niches within the city. Or not the city, but within the state, and so it's really complicated, and I don't claim to have the answers, I'm just saying. A lot of what we're feeling right now as far as our property taxes, because everybody wants to move here, and there's a supply and demand, and the housing prices have shot up significantly in the last 5 years.
Yes, Cassie?
Eagle's pretty close to Coeur d'Alene, right? They're right in that.
Eagles down in Ada County by, what, in the Treasure
I'm
Valley.
looking up Coeur d'Alene because someone had mentioned Coeur d'Alene's cheaper than us. So that's why I thought they were,
Yeah,
and but they're on the same taxing district where they have all these different
Yeah,
taxing districts, so they're not the same as the way that we.
It's really hard to boil down, and there's a lot of, I mean, how many under 500 population cities are in Idaho? There's so many. And so you look at these incorporated towns, you're like, well, you don't even have employees, you don't even have pavement. And yeah, you're 0.0002 or something, and just enough to keep the streetlights on. And so I can't use them as a comp to compare us to. And, you know, this is, again, not my world of expertise. I'm just trying to say, we set a budget every year and it's a dollar amount, and the dollar amount has not changed in 3 years. Your taxes have gone up, but what we do hasn't changed. And so we'll get into the specifics of what we've done with the budget, but you know, people legitimately are upset because they can't afford the taxes, but you know, they say, well, you shouldn't increase spending. Well, we haven't. So that's just the point I'm trying to make.
The assessment too on the houses, I know that was mentioned in here, and you touched on it a little bit. Who sets the assessed value or whatever
The assessor, the county assessor does that. And this is all set out in the Idaho Constitution where they have to assess your house within a certain percentage. And so that's their job, to make sure that, you know, if you own a house that's worth $500,000, you're paying your share of what that is.
And so is that based off from market indexes or something? Because it seems like, you know, even in here, it mentions that, you know, that's went up and down, but it doesn't seem like that's really fluctuated the same as what the real value is of the different.
Yeah, they're
houses.
usually pretty conservative with their numbers, or they, you know, if you look at what you paid for your house, even like if you bought a house in the last 6 months, what it assesses at, you're probably higher. You paid more than what it assesses for, that you'll catch up with that. But yeah, Dan Anderson is our assessor in Nez Perce County, and he's more happy to, I mean, we could even, I don't know if it's appropriate for the Public Works Committee to talk to the Dan Anderson, but he does do a roadshow, and he's very charismatic, and I enjoy listening to him because he's saying, you know, it's comps. It's, if you live in a neighborhood and 4 houses around you have sold in the last, you know, 5 years, and they're all same square footage, same vintage, same, you know, everything, I'm gonna look at those, and that's what's gonna be based off of your assessment.
Not just that, but that's okay. They also look into things, having dealt with the assessor's office, they'll say, because I have questioned them as to why the price on a certain house, they said, well, your house has granite. I said, excuse me, what does that have to do with it? He says, their house doesn't. I was like, how dare. So I'm sorry, it was just comments like that I thought were extremely inappropriate with how they went about doing the assessments on some of the, on this. So I you know, I wonder
I will
sometimes
say
about
everybody-
how they go about it. And yes, you can have somebody sit there and go through and, you know, do the show and try and explain things, but at the same time, it's one thing that you do it, but then when your staff comes through and explains those types of things to you, and how they came about your assessment, that was rather interesting.
Yeah, I have no desire to ever be a city councilor, but above that is to be a county assessor. There's a lot of people who I mean, especially with where the rate, where they're at now, I know, I mean, I know more people who are unhappy. I mean, everybody's unhappy with their assessment, but I've heard more stories like that than I've ever heard before.
Yeah,
Where it's,
concrete's another one.
Yeah.
If you do concrete driveway, your property taxes will go up and your
Yes,
house will be
and
considered higher.
yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
I was appalled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause it's more permanent than asphalt. I don't really get that, but.
yeah, there,
It chips away faster.
whatever.
so anyway, I wanted to
That
share that
one.
with this group, kind of as a basis of what Idaho property taxes are at. So can we move to the next one? This was the PowerPoint presentation. There's like 18 slides. I just took the 3 that were most appropriate for what we just discussed. Amy, our finance director, provided this PowerPoint presentation to the council during the first reading. And so I just picked the 3 slides that I felt were most informative for this conversation. This, if you go back to this, I'm not even sure which line this is because I think this is the streets and oiling, capital transportation. I think that's this line item is these dollars. But I might be wrong. But that's not really important where this comes out. Is the important factor is if you look at the two lines I want to talk about are stormwater and arterial reconstruction. So you can see we dedicated roughly $250,000 annually until FY '24 with the creation of the stormwater utility. So it's now at 0, not to say that there's no revenue, it's just coming from a user fee. The one that's most important to me is the arterial reconstruction. So you can see before 2022, we were putting away $0 for any significant investment in the arterial program. In 2022, the police retirement program, which you can see had its own line item. Before Percy, each individual city had to fund the retirements of their police officers. This was way back in the 80s. And so they moved everybody to Percy, but there are still police officers and widows who were in that police retirement system. So we have to continue to fund it. And so we have a third party that makes sure we have enough funds in that account to pay off the people that still need it. And so as of FY '22, the market shifted after COVID and we have plenty of funds in there. So we shifted that allocation of 700, it was $1 million, but 700,000 ended up going to the arterial reconstruction. We did that for 2 years, FY '22, FY '23. Last year, the council shifted an additional $1.65 million into the arterial reconstruction program. I believe that came out of the building,
Reserve fund.
yeah, building reserve fund. So that now, instead of going into the buildings, goes into the streets. And as of today, that's where we're going, continuing to fund it at that level. Any council, future council can change that, just like the council's done in the past.
Yeah, I guess, so correction, because I know Amy would probably be like, correction, it didn't come out of it, but we just stopped funding that and now we're funding a different type of, the
Yes,
transportation.
yes,
So
yes.
we didn't pull from that
No,
account.
yeah, Amy, yeah, I said it Monday
you
and
said-
she corrected me. and
I was like,
I said it again so those are the dollars where they're going, not how many are in the pot. So, because we've spent 21st Street funds came out of that program and the Main Street design is coming out of that program. So we're spending money doing what we said we're gonna do. But that's just the annual allocation for those funds. So that slide caught my eye, and then we go to the next one.
I'll tell you, that's the fastest way to make community feel better. Like 21st Street, you got a lot of compliments because you see it's very interesting, the correlation of how people feel their tax dollars are spent based on what they see through public works. It's the only kind of visual department that you see where your money's going to. And so when you see like 21st Street and it looks, and such a success of that, I was like,
And that's what I've said.
It's a very strong correlation. So the more money you can put into that, it makes people feel like, your dollars are well spent, even though it goes into so many other, it's weird how that
Yeah,
happens.
and I've always said, there's always a group of people that say no taxes whatsoever and they don't want anything.
Yeah.
But I would say the majority of people say, I will pay a user fee, a tax, or whatever you want to call it, as long as I feel like I'm getting service for it. And so with stormwater utility, I'm really trying to push us to get out in front and show this is what we're doing. And same thing with the arterial reconstruction. The problem is with the arterial reconstruction, Main Street or Bryden or Thane or 21st, to really do those projects, those are tens of millions of dollars. And so $2.3 million a year is gonna take a while to get there. We can bond it, but that's what I'll come back to you next week or next month with the Main Street project about talking about getting public support for a bond. I'm not advocating for one or the other. I'm just saying one has benefits and the other has a benefit. So getting back to this, the city advertise, when you publish a budget, you announce what the percentage increase is going to be. So if the city came out and statutorily, the city can only raise the property taxes 3%. The max you can raise on an annual basis is 3%. And when you advertise and publish the budget, you say what it is. Say it's gonna be a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, or some other number in between. You can go lower, but you can't go higher once you publish it. So if you said I'm going 0% and a counselor said I want to include a 1% increase, you can't do it. You'd have to republish it and go back out. So the city this year published a 3% budget. And so the breakdown is here. This is a little complicated, but when we ran through the numbers and just carried the FY23 budget forward, we have increases in Percy, the retirement, we have increases in insurance, and we have increases in something else that was significant. Wages, I think it was COLAs, wages. So those three things, those are all dictated by contracts. And so to just carry that forward was an additional $366,000. So just to do what we did in 23 to 24 cost us 1.55% increase. And so the mayor said, well, if we're in for a penny, let's just roll this out and show the options. So the first line out that starts with 060 PD3 LPR camera system, that line item right there from the 30,000 down to the engineering PE consulting funding, that's 0.45%. So that gets us to 2%. So if you wanted to go a 1.55 gets you just 23. The 0.45 gets you those things on that next line. And then if you go to the full 3, that 1% on the end gets you everything below that dark line. And that is included in all of the budget. So the transportation thing, so they included everything in our request in this budget. So you've got the signal heads, our consulting funding, and then below that item, light component upgrades, the damage reserve. So we've talked about the signal cabinets that keep getting hit. Those are all the line items that were included in that. So fast forward to Monday, the council made a motion to remove everything except for the 1.55%. So everything you see on that page is now out of the budget as of the second reading. There is unfortunately, we have two commissioners here, council members here to help us explain where we go from here. If you go to the next, we might flip back and forth between the two slides. So these are budget items. And what we typically do is load, these are general fund unassigned reserves. And so traditionally what we try and do with reserves, so reserves are unspent money that we have available for spending. And so let's say I have a travel budget and I didn't travel anywhere for training. So that unspent money goes into reserves. Generally, I mean, that Amy would correct me on that statement, but unspent money goes into the reserves. And a lot of these things that, during COVID, we weren't able to spend a lot of money. So from 2020 on to 2023 or into 2024, the reserves got built up significantly. I think we were up to 100 and some odd days. So we have incrementally been spending down the reserves. Good practice is to have 90 days of operating expenses in the bank. And you can see this current budget has 92 days. So we're now down, spent our reserves down, and we'll build them back up next year, but we'll spend them back. We want to keep in that 90 day-ish. What the mayor has traditionally done is to try and put one-time expenditures, equipment. We can look at any one-time expenditures in the reserves. So I'm not gonna fund a position through the reserves because when the reserves are gone, that means that position's gone. So if it's, a piece of equipment, so if we go, not to say we have to flip back and forth between the two slides, but if you go back to the other slide, a lot of the stuff that Public Works has requested is equipment and there's a tilt trailer and one-time expenses. And so this is now where the horse trading goes on at the council. Do they wanna increase it beyond the 1.55? There's conversations about going straight to zero. What would get pulled off of reserves and could you horse trade something from the other line, other budget that was cut to feed it into these reserves? I think that's a lot more behind the scenes that maybe you guys were interested in, but that's kind of where we're sitting right now. I've talked to at least one council member. I know there's enough room for us to work. The expectation is we have the arterial reconstruction program moving forward. And I'm really happy with where that's going. We don't have enough operating expenses, particularly with streets. And so the hope was that they were going to keep those items in the budget and carry those forward for future expenses from moving forward. They appear not to right now. The equipment we can find. Public Works spends a lot of money. I can find, a line striper, $10,000. I can find a way to spend that within my budget probably next year, if it's a good year. It's more concerning about, the signal cabinets that got knocked down. Those are, the last one that got knocked down was over $100,000 with all the components. They got it good. So at bare minimum, they're $60,000. And if they don't have insurance, we eat that. And then there's a lot of staff time chasing it down. So those are the things I would like to see pushed back in the budget. And I'll keep coming back until we find a place. And it's just a matter of letting the council understand, when we don't get that, that means we take it away from somewhere else because the people are gonna knock down our signal cabinets. That's just gonna happen. So you can fund it or you not fund it. That's just the facts of life. So that's generally the state of things right now when it comes to Public Works and the budget. So I'm gonna stop talking and leave it to you guys to have this conversation.
Now, what are you saying? For us to have a,
Yeah, if you guys wanna questions,
right, yes.
So the other portions that fund the city budget, like the state and county, have those went up at all from last year? Are they a percent increase?
Are you talking about revenue coming to the city or their taxes?
The revenue coming to the city from state? federal?
Yeah, it's always it's hard to nail down because we do see a lot of grants, a lot of stuff is grant funded. And they're with whatever the can't remember the blanking on the acronym that, the COVID money that came to everybody. So ARPA, yeah. ARPA money, CARES money, all that stuff has come. So we've seen a lot more revenue from that. But as far as direct participation from, no, we don't see any dollar for dollar trade where they come in and they participate in anything. It's always competitive grants.
I know I have a meeting with the mayor tomorrow to look at putting a lot of those back and finding different areas to cut that are gonna be less detrimental on the city, but yet still going towards the goal of the 0% increase for the citizens. So more to that one Monday, but I do have a plan to meet with him and I know he has a lot of ideas to do that.
Yeah, a lot of, the conversations I've had is vacancy savings, consolidating positions, not filling positions that are open.
Some of those have been open for years.
Yeah, some of,
It's not have been filled.
yeah, and I've up to this point cut all of those because that's how I got through previous years. So I don't have any I have unfilled positions because people just resigned a month ago. I'm 70 some employees, so there's bound to be turnover. But I don't have any, golden gooses to just say I won't fill or I'll consolidate this or anything else. you know, I think this is the time for any department, public works, parks, fire, police, to look at savings as far as inefficiencies. And I think, you know, the mayor has pushed us. Maybe it's time to push a little harder in some of these areas, and we haven't had the conversation. You know, signal cabinets are a necessity. There's services that the city provide that, you know, when we talk about, you know, there's a cost of service. And I've had these conversations, we talked about property taxes. We've gone 0% for 3 years now, but the cost of fuel, cost of insurance, cost of everything have gone up. We still pay for those. And so it's a matter of, are we just not gonna fund a service program? Because that's not affordable anymore.
That kind of gets back to my question though, of the assessment value. Is the
Oh.
assessment going up next year to where you, at the same percent of tax, are you gonna generate that $300,000 worth of revenue?
No,
next year?
no, because the city puts in a finite, it is a firm dollar amount. And so there's no, so when people see the assessments go up, a lot of people assume that we get more money. We don't. We turn out our budgets to the county and say, we want to collect whatever it is, $40 million next year. And they come up with their equation and say, this is how we're going to collect it. And it's going to be far more coming from the residents than it's going to be from the commercial property. So people have pushed back saying, well, I paid, you know, $4,000 more a month for my taxes. What are you doing with that extra money? And there is none. It does, I mean, not for us.
Yeah, the only time you would see it is, if the city approved a bond, or if we itself, like if we went for the 3% increase, then the city would get more money.
Yeah.
But just by appraisals themselves, we don't receive more money. It basically just balances out, or the other districts have raised their taxes depending on the situation.
So I understand, having been in government many, many years and hearing that going back and forth, and that's where putting a lot of pressure on economic development is highly necessary. I mean, that's why hiring like and people go, oh my gosh, we don't need it, but you need, I mean, I know there's Valley Vision and all that other bit, but when you don't kind of prioritize yourselves instead of being kind of a conglomerate of a group, your wishes kind of can go to others. And so economic development with an economic development manager or something like that, where they're just focusing, because I remember sitting through budget meetings and we're sitting there like, you know, do you hire a code enforcement officer? Do you, not give public works or streets and all that bit? And then the question would come back, because there was an economic development manager, they'd say, okay, so where are we at with our square footage and how much retail space do we have open, or what type of businesses do you have coming in that can provide a tax base? Is it gonna be a manufacturing business or something? And they were constantly always going out and getting that to take kind of some of the pressure off of residents and, and businesses, always looking for that tax base of growth. And so I don't kind of, it's kind of interesting that it's kind of coming down, like you said, that, we're losing our retail base in this, but in some of the things, I've read and kind of been watching, I don't hear about the growth on the economic side. When I've asked about it, everybody says, well, we have Valley Vision. I'm like, but that doesn't support like Lewiston or, certain communities that are looking for that kind of base.
Valley Vision does. They support bringing in big manufacturers. They don't
Right.
try to target retail.
Right, but
Yeah,
it's
they're not
more kind of exactly, so you have your advocate from the city kind of being there or going out and, putting those bids out to retailers or putting it out to a grocery store, putting it out to those types of things. And I only learned about that because we were in this crisis of budget. It's always a crisis of budget, I don't know why it is. But I actually kind of became friends with an economic development person and learning from them about all the different ways that they were going about it. You're always part of a county thing and all that bit, but it was very fascinating to learn all those things and what they were trying to do so they can offset budget, offset school programs, offset senior programs, and grow that and the pressure that they had to try and get that dollar amount. So it would be interesting someday to see kind of that, because it's always going to be that constant battle, that it's going to be the residents, to the businesses, but there is a lot of vacant space, there is a lot of vacant land, there's port land, there's this land, and all those different types of dollar amounts to try and come in to kind of help offset this growth. So it's, I hear what you're saying and all that bit, and it's just kind of also kind of frustrating because it sounds like a lot of it does have to go on the backs of the residents now, and I've really kind of never heard that before until this meeting. I've always kind of heard where they're pressuring other areas first before going back to the foundation, so to speak. And so I don't know, I'm just kind of, I understand, because your expenses have gone up. You have to pay. I mean, we're in a horrible situation with inflation. I can't even fathom, trying to fuel the fleet and what your fuel costs are now compared to what they used to be. I'd be crying,
I cried monthly bill every time.
No, I'd be telling half my public works guys, you need to carpool. We're gonna let that table sit, you guys carpool today, it's gonna be one of those
You
types
just
of things. But, it's that type of frustration that, areas, unfortunately, public works can't rest. They have to have an increase. And I hate saying, you have to have an infrastructure. The infrastructure is kind of like your body, your skeleton, and your heart. If it's not well, then the community's not well. So.
Yeah,
I don't know.
last
There's gotta
year,
be some other-
It was interesting. I sat down and the mayor's reasonable, but he said, no, do not, this was last year's budget. But he said, do not increase any line, you have to ask to increase any line item. It's like, okay, that's fine. We had paint, striping paint for roads, and it's gone up considerably. And I here's the quote from what the paint was here, and here's the quote from this paint this year. And I, flat out said, we either increase it or we paint, 14 miles less of road. And that's, I mean, I'm not trying to twist anybody's arm, but that's just like, I can't make paint. So that's what it is.
I think it's what we don't, when we put something at a zero, no increases, are we really giving the public what they want? I don't think so. They want these services.
The struggle I've always, and struggle going through the first two readings is when they see the 3% increase in our budget, they extrapolate that to their tax bill. And it is not conveyed directly across. We could go zero, we could reduce it as a city and their taxes could still go up. Or we could raise it 3%, their taxes could go down. It's based off of assessments and how everything else is played out. So it's always been a struggle of, last year, Soden County, Nez Perce County, both, it's automatic 3%. And that's just how it's, because you have so much, especially during times when inflation is 8% or CPI has gone up 8%. And you're not doing the 3%, you end up really getting, because this stuff compounds annually. So if you go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, you're not just behind, it's extrapolating over each year. So, but I get it. I mean, I pay taxes just like everybody else, so it's not fun.
I think they're mainly wanting to see that we can try to find ways not to, as you said, put the burden strictly on the taxpayers, the homeowners. And that's where the frustration is they continually have seen that. And not because of us, the city has made amazing within the budget that they've had to, and it has been difficult to do that. But as a citizen paying the taxes, it's hard. It's like, how can we not be the ones putting the burden? And like you said, if we get more retail, restaurants, other big manufacturers to offset that tax base, it will go down. But that unfortunately takes time, and it also depends on what people are willing to lease their properties out for and whether those businesses want to pay that lease amount.
Or they don't want to have to fill a building because they're already getting paid for it.
Or they're falling apart. There's a lot of buildings people don't want to rent because they're falling
Yeah,
apart
so-
and it needs a lot of maintenance.
And I don't think Boise is doing us any favors. They're kind of not seeing the problem between commercial and residential property
Oh, yeah.
taxes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so we're fighting that. And that's why we see what we've got is Boise not dealing with.
I will say they're not able to assess valued homes right now because there is a new program coming out for property tax relief. But they don't have a lot on what that is gonna be.
It just fixed on.
Well, we'll see what that ends up looking like.
Right.
Did you have
Yeah.
a lot of information at all on how much the retail, commercial type of tax base has changed in the last 10 years? Cause most of the big manufacturers, at least like Clearwater Paper, ACCI, whatever you want to say, they're all outside of the city limits, right? So we don't collect any tax.
Yeah,
Spencer's
yeah.
really the only, it's kind of in the area.
Yeah,
The Home Depot, side of them, most of the commercials closed up and went to Washington.
yeah.
And Russia.
Yeah, I mean, and somebody brought it up, maybe it was a letter to the editor that, St. Joe's was a nonprofit and they then went for, they went to private and so they paid property taxes first time in their existence. And I happen to know somebody who worked there, and they told me how much the property taxes were, and then they went down significantly in the last assessment or the 2023 assessment. And that's just based off of commercial assessed value, appraised value. So, that's just one
Yeah.
story.
So has that tax base, so I mean, has that changed from like, say, 10 million down to 8, or do you have a way to show the offset that would be required for that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but I know
County
City.
website,
county-
I think
county
has it,
can-
cause even the county assessor put a huge article out about property taxes and what happened, and he put some numbers on there. I can't recall if it gave it, broke it that much, but
Yeah,
it should be on
I know,
there.
and the mayor told, mayor's much more sharp on this and he's able to query some of this information or the data and he was using some Happy Day property and he's like, they've all gone down. And that's one property owner and that's, probably not fair to pick on one, but
And it's not like their fault either. It's
no,
not like,
you
they're like,
just
I'm gonna
you run
pay
a
less.
business and
Yeah, it
run a
just happened to
successful
be.
business and
There's
That's
a
just
lot
the
of
market.
ones that are open right now. Businesses.
yeah, the economic development side, and that's one, I don't think it's on our future agendas, topics, but it is coming is, it's design standards. Bringing to this body, the city, and it came up Monday night, the city's got this reputation of being hard to deal with when it comes to development and whether it's commercial, residential, subdivisions, whatever it is. And so, I've talked with the community development director, I've talked to the mayor, I've talked to developers. I want to see that we're never going to make it perfect, but to see where can we make this more, more
User friendly.
for the developers to come in the door and at least get rid of this reputation of the city of Lewiston so hard to deal with. And the one that I want to bring to this board is sidewalks. So, downtown has a decent amount of sidewalk inventory, the Orchards doesn't. And so, our ADA transition plan says we want to see, sidewalk and non-vehicular travel move forward into the future. And so when somebody comes in off of Thane and says, I want to build, the next great commercial property, and we said, well, you got to put four, you're on four corners and you got to put sidewalk on all of that. And then they go, well, now you just priced me out, I'm gone. Versus, all right, yep, put in the next great commercial store there and nobody can get to it, nobody can walk to it because there's no sidewalk. So trying to find that happy medium of, what is our priority and where is that line? And right now, the line in the code is a certain value amount in investment in the property. Once you trigger that, which then becomes a game where the staff has to say, no, I think you're over it. Show me your and so I don't like to be the arbitrator of like, oh yeah, you went over the dollar amount or you're definitely under it because I played that game, How old's your kid to get into the junior? Oh, how old is, oh, yeah, she's definitely 9. She's 5'8", but she's 9.
Definitely a code, I think, though, maybe we'll bring in a future agenda might be good to look at.
Oh, yeah,
whether
it's,
This is
Yes.
causing so much of a hindrance that we're not getting, because if we got enough business that we created more money,
Yeah.
then maybe we'd be able to fund those ourselves as a city and add some sidewalks and
yeah, and it's a
and
great.
not put it on the person that's,
Staff
trying
is
to build-
gathering, because I have, dozens of examples of different properties that have come in or didn't come in.
even shops, because I've heard people try building shops and they're like, you need to put a sidewalk. It's like,
Yep.
it's in my backyard. No one's gonna be
Yeah.
walking on
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So that code needs, I think,
Yeah.
looked at.
So
It does need to be looked at, because there are ways you can go about, like, if So if one person comes in and develops and you can have adjoining businesses to the side, you can kind of hold off and put it like in a development agreement. You could kind of say, you know, we'll put you in first. You don't have to do the whole thing at first. You can just do this part. If your next business or this person comes in next, then you need to put the next part in. And there's ways to kind of do those development agreements so that over time, you know, then you're getting that
Yeah,
together.
and that's where I've come from in the past, where we called it the waiver right to protest. So if you come in and you're on a block and there's six houses on that block and nobody else has sidewalk, but it looks like a sidewalk should be there, but I can't force your neighbors into the sidewalk. And it's usually commercial, but residential too. You say, all right, you're gonna file a waiver right to protest the creation of a RID, road improvement district or whatever. And so they file it, it's at the courthouse. And so when, now we got 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, we've got 80% of the street now has come in over the course of time. Now the city's gonna come in and do that, and we're gonna create a special improvement district. And you or your previous owner have filed this. And so, and then the only problem with that is the city has to front it, the city has to do all the work. But city fronts it and we build the sidewalk and then they pay us back through their tax bill. That's one way of doing it. But what ends up happening there is you get one or two on a lot on the
But-
road and then.
But still, even on a development agreement, you can still put it back on the business down the road and basically say, just do this one part, so they don't have to do all the upfront costs, so they get somebody
yeah,
coming
yeah.
in. And then, design it so that when the next person comes in, then you say, then you're doing it. Kind of like sewer projects, and sometimes, you're doing the same thing when you're just developing on a pump station. Then you're kind of working with those new developers,
So
putting it in.
those are my ideas on budget and trying to reduce the budget and trying to get more user friendly with the development going in. So I don't kind of lyrics going in different directions and it's 107, so.
Out of off time though, if you do think of more codes, will you bring them to me and then I can put into one and possibly bring them out at the future agendas meeting?
Okay, yeah, what we're doing right now is we're going through the code line by line and calling out improvements that we want. And I'm then specifically referencing certain developments that were either they withdrew because of the code, or they were successful because of something we found in the code, or ones that it just was a square peg in a round hole. So I'll have more in the next, probably after this fall, winter.
Should I wait to bring that code to a
Yeah,
future
yeah,
agenda then?
yeah,
Okay,
yes.
I will wait.
All right, there,
Because I was pushing.
any last questions? Because I'd like to move on.
I mean, I could push
Okay.
harder.
All right,
You
so
have
we're
that.
moving
I
on to
do.
unfinished and new business. Commissioners' comments. We should not be related to any item. Oh, that's just the commissioners, right? Us? Yes, city liaison.
Yeah, cause
One. You're their staff liaison, you guys are. Just one comment. I get a lot of, and thank you, Haley, for signing all of us up. That was very helpful, getting all the alerts and agendas and stuff like that. So thank you for doing that. Because I thought I was on all of them, but, my only comment would be is as road work and stuff goes forward in the future, I mean, I get all the public works ones for the assembly or certain things. But I didn't get the ones for some of the road where they cut off major arterials. And I used to get those where it'd say, beware, Public Works is gonna be shutting down this road, or, there's gonna be a disturbance on this road, just be aware detours or traffic's gonna be slower. I noticed that a couple of the main ones recently, which you had brought up that, nothing went out. And so I just would kind of, you don't want to know the language over at Harbor Freight when we were there shopping about trying to do the
Oh,
eco
yes,
that because nobody knew about it and stuff. So they were trying to get around and they were having some problems because that was an extensive shutdown in that area. So if you can, please, in the future, just kind of make sure, 24 to 48 hours, at least kind of let the world know that
Yeah, for
this
the,
arteria is going to be shut down.
for the pavement preservation, we have the mailers and the door tags and that
Yeah,
kind of
but it didn't
stuff.
come out to the rest of us that
Yeah,
were driving.
yeah,
through.
Yeah, there was a
That's not
couple,
pretty.
there was something in there. And
Trying to
anyway,
get to the post office was an absolute.
oh, yeah, I'm the
I
guinea
get
pig.
those notices and I still forget about them. I'm like, gosh dang it.
I know, but it's nice
I
on
did
my
this
email,
twice.
because then I can tell my husband, don't go drive downtown. Go over here today.
But yes, coming in, that's not September, October, the arterial lane closure, because Public Works Director had enough of those instances where there were road closed, specifically arterials,
Right.
where there was a lane closure or a detour and I didn't know about it. And I'm not saying that I should be all knowing or anything. I'm just saying if I don't know about it,
No, you need
the
to know.
public doesn't know
They can
about
tell you.
it. So we are revising our arterial lane closure, and so that would probably be a good time for the nightmare stories, whether it's chip seal or a sewer project or anything else. I can't take credit for Lloyd, ITD, WashDOT.
You were cursed under the breath. You don't want to know. Just letting you know.
It's okay. I think I've got the reputation now.
Any other comments?
I just have a couple. Main Street, sorry, no, yeah, concerning the budget, if you guys do, as a committee, or just as an individual, find things that you think or that you've been hearing the public wanting us to focus on, what you find important, I would encourage you to voice that at this next coming Monday's meeting before the budget is closed. The other one is I have seen some of the warning signs for the construction, but they're really tiny and I could not see them if I'm driving, and I don't know if that's feedback. I think it's because we pay another company, right? to do it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think, I don't know if
They should all
that's
be
feedback we can give them,
MUTCDs,
but
They're small. She's right.
yes, they're very small. I mean, I would have to stop.
On
to
the
read them.
pavement preservation one?
Yeah, the little, like they're on the little stand-up
Okay,
highlighted signs. I mean,
Very
they're
small.
very small.
Okay.
So bigger would be
Okay.
better. Bigger is better for that. And then I'll be out this next meeting for the 18th. I'm gonna be in Florida, so I won't be here for that Monday meeting, just as a heads up. And I think, yep, and I think that was it. Right, marked it down so I didn't forget.
Going on to staff liaison comments.
the only comment I would have is, Cassie already hit on the way that meetings fell and lack of meetings and the budget readings. We don't obviously have enough time for this board to collectively give any recommendations for the budget. But I would encourage anybody who wants to participate in the budget, even just as your person, come Monday should be interesting. It's the third reading of the budget. This is where we adopt it. So if you want to have any input on the budget, Monday's your last chance.
So emails are still, they're read. They're not read out loud, but emails will be passed on to the counselors. If you can't make it in person, you can still email.
They will be distributed to all of us, just not read out loud.
Yes.
So you can use that. Moving on to future agenda items. On the very back page, which I didn't see, is the future agenda items updated on August 14th.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to add something more to that, now would be the time to do it.
Well, it's future meetings, design standards, right?
Oh, right here. Oh, okay.
This one.
Okay, never mind then.
I knew it was on there. Yeah, buried.
When?
Have any,
So, never mind.
I think we have quite a bit of upcoming ones, so we'll keep us busy.
Mhm.
okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the next, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Chair, motion to adjourn.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, or goodbye. Goodbye. Like the little speakers there. Goodbye.
That gentleman, that older gentleman, that came in, working on the property taxes.
Oh, yeah,
He was, I tried not